goes like that. That's good. Does that look weird? You put it on, Cookie, so it doesn't feel weird to do it. Go put it on.
I should have wore a low neck shirt.
That's okay. It's alright.
I don't know.
I ain't gonna expose. I'm not like that. I'm not a snitch. Virginity. It's a hush hush topic. Yeah.
They love me. Let's see if your parents raised you.
It's deeper than the physical.
What up, fam? Welcome back to the Juxtaposition, everyone.
All right. Introduce yourselves.
I am Niekiesha Pennant.
And I am Marlon Pennant.
And how did you guys meet?
We actually met here at Christian Center Church, actually in this room that we're recording in.
Yeah.
And it was a young adults Christmas party that he had come to play with the band. A mutual friend of ours, Nathaniel, actually had him come out. And they played. It was really fun. It was a good night. I think that was one of the first times we actually had like a live band come in for one of our events. So it was really nice. And I like to say that was the night when he saw me. It was love at first sight. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. He can't disagree. So by the end of the night, we were cleaning up, and he was leaving, and we were just saying bye to all the musicians, and he was walking around the corner, and he nearly tipped over because I had said something to him, and he like leaned back to make sure he was able to say bye to me, or I said something like, make sure you guys come again, or thanks for coming. He's like, yeah, no problem. But he had his bass on his back, and he almost tipped backwards. Am I telling a lie?
No,
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
After that, I got into contact with Niekiesha through Nathaniel, and we just kind of just started talking from there. I would be at church, and I would see Niekiesha, and then she would say that she was going to a play or something, and I'd be like, and I would just say, oh well, I'm and she'd tell me where it is, and then I would say, oh well, I'm going that way, I'll drop you off, and I only did that because I liked her. I just wanted to spend more time with her, so it worked.
I thought that was very nice of him but this was after we had already spoken. I think the first time we spoke on the phone, we ended up talking for like 4 hours or something.
Yeah. And then it started snowballing.
And then ever since that phone call, I was like, oh yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. And then a few other times he came by church and he offered to bring me somewhere. And I was like, oh, that's nice, because most people don't offer to drive downtown. No one wants to drive downtown Toronto for any reason, much less to just drop somebody off, right? So...
And that's the story of how we met.
Got brownie points for that.
That's the story of how we met. Yeah.
How did both of you guys know that? Well, for Niekiesha first, how did you know that Marlon was the one, and for Marlon, how did you know that Niekiesha was the one?
The funny thing is during when we were dating, it was kind of, we were not officially dating yet, but we were still, I guess, talking to each other. And there were times when there'd be moments when he would be like, okay, well, maybe this isn't working, so maybe we should take a break. But then I would be just very adamant about, not very adamant, like there was something within me that knew that I couldn't let him go. It was really weird, like not in an obsessive kind of way. I truly believe that it was more so, if I don't take care of him, then who's gonna take care of him? I felt like I had to be the one to make sure that he was okay. Even if we weren't in like a romantic relationship, I just felt like a very intense, I guess, feeling to kind of stay with him and make sure that he was okay. Yeah.
And I knew that Niekiesha was the one because it was more of a spirit-led thing, I knew that she was the person because God was just leading us in that direction, and yeah, I guess there's more to it, but.
He tried to leave me a few times. He tried to leave me a few times. But then, as I said, that feeling of, well, I can't let him go, it would always come back. Mm-hmm. I needed to make sure he was okay, because, more so in like a very protective way. Like I needed to make sure he was okay, because I felt like if he would go out to be somewhere else or with somebody else, they wouldn't be able to give him what he needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how long have you guys been married so far?
Come this March, so March 2022, it'll be 7 years.
7 years, yeah. 7 years. They say if you pass the first 5 or something like that.
The first 5 years is usually when most marriages fail.
Yeah.
And I totally understand why they say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally understand why. It's hard, man. It's definitely a learning curve. I made a joke with a friend and I said, marriage is probably one of the most beautiful cons that, it's like a beautiful con from God, because it's such a beautiful thing, but they don't really tell you how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And how ugly it can get. Mm-hmm. But because in a marriage that has Christ as the center, like he carries you through those moments. I honestly don't know how marriages survive without Christ, because it's so easy to make your circumstances affect the decisions that you make, right? Yeah, the first 5 years for us definitely was difficult. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and with other friends that I have, I feel like we kind of all went through the same stage as well, and most of them have made it through and are better for it. So I totally agree with the first 5 year rule.
Yeah, yeah.
So how many children do you guys have between you two?
We have 4 boys and 1 girl. Liam and Eli, they're both twins. They're turning 7 in August. And then we have Micah, he's 5.
He's turning 5 in July.
He's turning 5 in July, yeah. Sorry, turning 5 in July. And then we have Noah, who's turning 3 at the end of this month. Mm-hmm. And then the baby girl, Naomi. Naomi, sorry, Naomi. Baby girl Naomi, she's here in the studio.
She's actually here, so.
And if she's quiet,
she's quiet.
That's how you know we've done a good job as parents.
She's quiet right now, so if you hear anything, it's the baby.
Yeah.
Did you guys always plan to have 5 kids, or was that your desire?
We never planned to have 5 kids. So the way we had kids, we started having kids, is that we had kids out of wedlock. So we had twins our first time when we had children. So we were pregnant before we got married. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of actually what kind of, not that it kind of ensured that we were married, because we really didn't get married because of the kids. We really got married because we knew God was leading us in that direction. But
the baby's kind of just fast tracked.
Yeah. It kind of just fast tracked. And your question is.
How did we decide to have 5 children? Or if we always knew we wanted 5
so
children?
Once we have the 2, we realized that, well, why not just have more? Why not? We had 2 one time, and one of our children is actually disabled, one of the twins. So it's almost like we had in these 2 children, we had every possible scenario. And we looked at everything and we said, but everything is still fine. So why not have more. So this is the natural progression of how we had more. And after we had Micah now, our third child, we said, what's the one, we always ask older people what's the one thing that they regret the most, and always they say that they regret not having more children. So we said, you know what, let's just listen to the wisdom of elders and just have our children. And we went and we had Noah after that, and then after
I
that
said I was done.
Niekiesha
The baby fever's real.
My baby fever's
Yeah.
real, and it came back in full force, and then we had another one.
Yeah, just have another baby.
And then we realized that baby, we don't have to worry about, like, through that experience, we were living in an apartment, I lost my job, God gave me another one, we never ran out of money, we never ran out of food, and then we realized it really doesn't matter how much children we have, like, God always provides. And there are people out there who are in situations where they're in dire situations, then they have a lot of children. What do you say about that? Even in their dire situation, God still provides. God still provides. So that is how we decided to have as many children as we have now.
I just wanted more. So
Yeah.
we had more.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm okay now.
Yeah.
I'm okay now. I think I'm okay now. Being a mom, it's wonderful. It's a challenge, but I think I'm okay only because I feel as though I'm ready to enter a new stage of motherhood that is separate from always caring for an infant. And it also takes a toll on your body. So physically, my pregnancies are a bit challenging on my body. So I think I'm ready to give my body a break. Yeah, I'm not opposed to having more children because I can always adopt more.
Right.
But in the sense of me birthing children, it's been a blessing and it came really easy for us. But I think I'm okay to say I'm done in that sense. But then just leave it at that. I don't know. You never know.
So now being married for 7 years now, how has your relationship with God, including kids now in the mix, how's the dynamic changed since being single and on fire for God and adding all the other responsibilities on top?
Yeah, it makes it more pressing. Like, your walk with God is more pressing at that moment when you have children, because your main focus as a parent is to reflect the image of Christ. So what it does is that there are people who God has entrusted to you, and they're watching you. So as they're watching me and my wife, what they see, they can't really see another one of me. They have to see, like, the image of God. They have to see the image of God, and that's what we really, really want for our children to see. That's what we want them to emulate. So our walk with God gets deeper because we want more than ever the image of Christ to be seen in us, or in our children. And there she is now. Come. Okay. There she is. Okay.
Okay, here she is. Okay. But we're not.
Maybe. Maybe she could be a part of the interview.
There you go.
Let's see if she'll sit nicely for a little bit. Okay. And I would also say that God has been the foundation of our marriage because, as Marlon mentioned, we did we did get pregnant before we were married. So that came with a lot of challenges in terms of acceptance from a lot of the people around us. Also for various reasons, because not a lot of people knew we were seriously dating. So for it to be a surprise, hey, we're pregnant, and hey, surprise, we're going to be getting married, that didn't go over well with a lot of our friends and family, which is fair, because it's a very big step, and it's very. Okay, we're gonna have to do this. Yeah.
We can ask that question later.
So what does it take to have a successful marriage from your perspective? Because today we see a lot of people giving advice and a lot of people getting divorced. So from your perspective, what does it take to have a successful marriage?
God.
Yeah, you have to. You have to really be intentional about putting Christ first, and striving to, I guess, just emulate like the fruits of the Spirit. And the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I remember the kids' songs help me remember. But all of those things, and being able, or being humble in pretty much every situation, because as people in a relationship, we go into marriage thinking it's going to make us happy, thinking our spouse is going to make us happy. So when that doesn't happen, we feel as though they failed us. And that's usually the moment when we have to take personal responsibility and understand that marriage is not so much about making us happy as individuals, but working together to create something that is pleasing to God and that brings honor and glory to God. And we can only do that with Him, because as individuals and as humans, we're always self-seeking. We want to feel good. As women, we want to feel cherished, and we always want to feel as though our husbands are taking care of us and protecting us, which is what they do for the most part. And as husbands, I realized very, throughout the marriages, they really need to feel supported and respected, and what's the word? They want to be encouraged. Which for me is difficult sometimes, because the love language is different. So he loves words of affirmation and touch and being cuddly, and he'll say "I love you" to me 5 times in the day for no reason. For me, my love language is acts of service. So that's where we kind of clash. But just in order to have that successful marriage, you have to be aware of that, the love languages, and also be aware that you have to be humble enough to put yourself outside of pretty much every situation and every argument, and be willing to work with the person and meet them where they're at. I think a lot of the tension that we had in our marriage was because I was expecting him to be something that I wanted him to be, and I wasn't looking at what he was doing and who he actually was, and I wasn't looking at the fact that I was expecting him to make me happy. So when I felt like he wasn't, things just didn't really go well. I would be really angry and nitpicky, and I would complain, but it got to a point where I realized that I can't look to him for that. I guess, what's the word that I can't look to him to make me happy. It just doesn't work, because if he does something one day that makes me happy and then he doesn't do it the next day, then what do I do with that? then it's going to turn into an argument, or you didn't do this, you didn't do A, B, C, and D, so that's why I'm unhappy, and that's why I'm not talking to you, and that's why I'm miserable, and that's why this marriage sucks right now, because you're not doing this. But we all have to be willing to take personal responsibility and be humble enough to just look at the bigger picture and be like, okay, but what am I doing? Am I doing all that I should be doing? Am I leaning on Christ to give me that sense of fulfillment and happiness and joy that I actually need? Because that's where it comes from. Because without that, it's just a never-ending cycle. Because there's going to be days when he doesn't do the dishes. There's going to be days when I don't say, hey, you're doing a good job. There's going to be days when things just don't go wrong. Things don't go right. And you have to be okay with that and not take it as a personal attack. Because as a wife and as a husband, like, nobody intentionally wants to hurt somebody or make them upset. So if that's the case and we're always upset or someone's always arguing, we have to look and be like, okay, but why is this happening? I guess so.
Yeah.
Right. So can you share anything, like 1 to 2 things actively that you guys do in terms of other than God that you guys do to keep the marriage being successful?
We try to make intentional time for each other.
Still a work in progress.
Yeah. We try to actually, I think that's actually the main thing, actually. Just making intentional time for each other. Because with the kids and everything, it just gets so, all the focus gets, it's so easy to allow the focus to deviate away from each other because there's so much going on. So intentionally saying, okay, no, we're gonna sit down together, we're gonna drink a glass of wine and just kick it back and just chill and just talk. Just because you're around somebody every day doesn't mean that you know what's going on in that person's life at that moment. Even if it is your spouse, you still have to ask, like, hey, how are you feeling? Like, like, is everything okay? Like, you gotta ask those questions and be intentional about it. Yeah.
What about you, Niekiesha? What do you do to keep the spice alive in your relationship?
Spice. To keep things going, I feel like as of late, for me personally, it's just being content. Because there were a few seasons over the past couple years, like last year, it was really hard for me. And it goes back to what I said before about taking personal responsibility. So I kind of just let go of a lot of the expectations that I had. And I began to actually just look at the good things in Marlon and accept the challenges that he was going through as well. And I also prayed. I prayed for God to give me contentment, because I felt like that is where I was lacking in that. The lack of contentment in my situation brought on a lot of anxiety and stress, and it pretty much broke me because I was just not happy. And I said to myself, I have so much, and yes, it gets busy with the kids. Being pregnant last year, and Marlon was working 2 jobs at one point, and the current living situation can sometimes also be stressful, but I was still just not exercising any kind of contentment, and it wasn't good. So I prayed, and God actually did answer my prayer. So I'm able to get up every day and just take things one day at a time, and know that if for some reason I'm overwhelmed in this moment, it has nothing to do with the quality of my life or the quality of my marriage. It's literally, this is just an overwhelming moment. Just take a step back. Everything is okay. Let the kids do whatever they're gonna do. Today didn't go as planned. It's fine. You just keep it moving. It's not the end of the world. So just being more aware, I guess, of myself and the role that I play and how I respond to my surroundings. That is one thing that I feel made the atmosphere lighter overall, because I'm not as, I guess, miserable as I was. Yeah.
How do you guys deal with conflict?
Well, it's
It's gotten better.
yeah, it's gotten better, and you have to understand when it comes to conflict, you have to know that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's let's wait and see and adjust as it goes. Because once you start to wait and see, and then you realize that, well, actually, we don't actually have a fight. Like, the fight really isn't the fight. It's and we learned this from our counseling sessions as well, and it's something that just is true. It's one person feels disrespected and one person feels unloved. So a comment might be made and you're fighting over the comment, but really it's not the comment. It's the fact that somebody feels disrespected. I think it was something about, I'll give you an example. It was eggs, hard-boiled eggs.
Right.
Yeah. So I had hard-boiled eggs. I had made hard-boiled eggs, and we were leaving to go to church, I think it was.
Yeah, this is one of the, when I was talking to you guys about
Right.
Trying to get out the house, and I get crazy when we're
Yeah.
trying to get out the house, yeah.
So we're supposed to go to church, and I had the hard-boiled eggs. And instead of peeling the hard-boiled eggs, I put the hard-boiled eggs in a container, and I brought them. Because as a man, we're just trying to get out the door, right? Let's just get everything and get out the door. But my wife goes and says,
silly argument.
you're supposed to peel them. Like, you're supposed to peel the eggs. And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to, what do you mean?
He
Like,
said something along the lines of, I thought we were rushing. And I was like,
Yeah, we thought we were rushing.
I said something, well, we can't
eat them unless they're
how are we
peeled.
going to eat them if
How
they're
we
not
eat it.
peeled?
So right away, if you're not as sensitive as I am, obviously, but sometimes, whenever some things are said, I'm now like, but wait, I know that we can't, like, who eats eggs with the shells on? I'm not a snake. Like, what is this, right? So, of course I know you have to peel them, but we can peel them in the car. That's all I'm thinking, right? We can peel them in the car. And then now we're arguing about these eggs, but we're not fighting about eggs. We're fighting because
He felt like I was implying that he was stupid.
I was stupid, that I didn't know that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is how conflicts start, but the way to really attack conflicts is to understand the root cause of the conflict. It is that someone feels disrespected or another person feels unloved. And when you can find the root cause, you can always go about fixing it, because it's just a matter of you humbling yourself and saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like you're stupid or something. You're not. Come on, man. I didn't mean that at all. And if somebody feels unloved, it's just like, man, I love you. Like, I'm so sorry I said that, because now you can see that your wife felt unloved by the comment that you made. And if you love your wife, you're going to feel hurt that you said something that may have hurt her. So right away, you're gonna snap out of it and be like, I'm not gonna fight over this. I'm going to apologize. I'm gonna go and make it right, because this is my wife I'm talking about here,
And he's definitely the stronger one when it comes to apologies. I feel like I learned the apologies probably within the...
You're still learning.
I'm still learning. No, I've gotten much better over maybe the past year and a half. So a year and a half out of almost 7 years. It took me a long time to learn how to apologize, mainly because I felt validated in my feelings of discontent. And I feel like as women, and being the caregivers and the homemakers and having all those responsibilities, it's easy to feel as though we're doing a lot more. It's hard work, It's very taxing, not so much physically. Like a man will go out and work, and that makes him physically tired. Women get physically tired, but also it's just like it's a mental fatigue that just kind of never goes away. So having to deal with all of that stuff, like the mental fatigue, constantly being at home and taking care of the kids, and then you have to take care of your husband. And when you get to the point where you feel drained and you're kind of stuck, and then you start to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you lash out in ways that are not conducive to like having a healthy, peaceful home or relationship. You feel validated because you're tired. I'm tired. I've been taking care of the kids. I've been doing all this stuff. I've been cleaning. You don't help as much as I feel like you should be helping. I'm always here. You get to go out and do whatever you want. Not to say that he doesn't allow me to go out, but just as moms, that's just how it works. It just works out that way, that you're doing more of the stuff at home. So I felt like I didn't need to apologize because I was right. Like I'm tired. So forgive me if I'm being short with you or if I'm not being as cuddly or as loving because I'm tired. So that's where my lack of apologies came from, because I felt validated and I felt my behavior was valid because of the circumstances. But then that goes back to being humble enough to put yourself outside the situation and just apologize or work with the person, and just remembering that you're on the same team. So even if it means that maybe he wasn't pulling his fair share of the weight in terms of the domestic duties, or maybe you could come home after work and help clean up with this, or maybe you could wake up early because you don't start work at this time, so maybe you could be responsible for breakfast. All it takes is a conversation to get that sorted, as opposed to just constantly being upset about it, right? Yeah.
All right, so just to wrap it up, what is some advice that you can give to young Christian couples or young married couples that are going on that journey, since you are 7 years deep in that?
I would say get counsel from other healthy married couples that are clear examples of what a Christ-centered marriage looks like. That is pretty much, like, get good counsel and have a good support system and a good example of what a healthy marriage looks like. And healthy doesn't mean perfect, because no marriage is perfect. Literally, you could talk to every single married couple. And this is something that I tell pretty much all my married friends or all my newly married friends, is like, I'll ask them, I was like, okay, so how's marriage? Like, do you guys still like each other? Because a lot of people don't tell you that it gets ugly real quick. Not to say it stays ugly, but you get married with the intention of being happy, and I feel like it's not necessarily the image that we should be portraying. Not to say it's doom and gloom, because it's actually a beautiful and it's an amazing thing, but I would say just to have good counsel and know that marriage is not to make you happy.
Yeah, I think that would be my number one thing too. And it's you get married, like the Bible says that that God, when he's talking about the Bible, when it's talking about marriage, is actually, like Paul says, I know that these things sound like a mystery, but I'm actually talking about Christ and his church. So these our union between men and women, being married, it represents Jesus Christ and him being unified with his church. So the message that I would tell every young person is know that, because once that's the bedrock, once you understand that your marriage is to please God first, there is absolutely no way that you will there is absolutely no way that you won't be able to overcome your adversities when they come.
Yeah.
Because you remember when you are like minutes away from taking your ring off and just throwing it in the river, before you even touch your ring, you'll remember that this isn't about me. This is about the glory of God. And if you are more serious about the glory of God than pleasing your own self, never will you ever touch that ring. Never ever will you ever dishonor your wife. Never ever will a wife dishonor their husband, because that wife or that man or that woman is more centered on the glory of God than anything else. So my advice to every young person: center your marriage around Christ, like period, and your marriage will never fail.
Yeah. And then just to end with, or to just top off what you said is, I know the "what would Jesus do" bracelet fad, and it just became like a thing. It became like a fad. What would Jesus do? But actually, I do use that on a day-to-day basis when you get into conflict, because it brings you back to scriptures. If I'm ever, and I do that with everything, it keeps your spirit very sensitive, and it keeps your conscience on point, because in any situation, you ask yourself, okay, what would Jesus do in this situation? And it gives you perspective, because it allows you to remain humble, because in every situation he remained humble, and he was able to put himself aside and just speak the truth, or do something that was, I guess, against the status quo, whether it meant being forgiving or being gracious, or talking to people who didn't necessarily deserve to be talked to right now. And that could be your spouse on some days. It's like, I don't want to talk to you right now because you did something to hurt me. But what would Jesus do in this situation?
He would talk to you.
He would talk to them. He would extend grace, you know? So just literally just keeping Christ as the center of your marriage, and knowing that every other couple is going through the exact same thing.
You're not alone.
You're not alone, and I feel like that's usually where the discouragement comes from, and the hopelessness comes from. Like, everybody else is so happy in their marriage. Like, why are we going through this? Why is this so difficult for me? Like, how come he's treating me this way? Or why don't I feel good about my marriage? Like, literally every marriage is the same. You talk to another married person, they will be able to finish your sentence about how their husband did something crazy and offended them, or like they're just not happy in this moment. Like, we've all gone through the same thing. It's all the same. The circumstances, the colors, the timing, the seasons might be different, but for the most part, it's all the same. So misery loves company. So when you're talking with married couples, it's always nice to be honest about what you're going through, because your honesty about the difficulties of marriage could save somebody else from giving up. Right?
Because then they'll be able to look at you and say, I'm actually not alone.
Yeah.
Like, this is actually normal.
It's a thing. Like, it's a thing.
Because you're dealing with two, remember, I mean, like, everyone has been bought by Christ, and every single person has been saved. But really what we're really doing is that we're taking two sinful people and we're bringing them together. So your sin, my sin, and her sin are now clashing together, and sin is selfishness, and all these kinds of selfish things come and clash together. And so that's where you get this hardship, it's for lack of a better word, when it comes to marriage. But Christ is the one that breaks those things. So for every single married person, that's the advice.
So put
Christ
God first
at the center of your marriage.
All right. Thanks for coming and gracing us on our stage. And that's it. That's a wrap.
Nice. Perfect.
Welcome back to the juxtaposition, everyone.